Welcome to a brand new episode of Storytalkies by We-Storytellers. My name is Jivak, and today I will be covering an important and a delicate topic called as diversity at workplace. How sensitive is this entire subject of diversity? Imagine I'm from Maharashtra and I have entered a space or a board meeting or a room filled of all corporate people with suits and ties, wearing a dhoti probably, a traditional outfit from Maharashtra. And I enter and I sit in that space, how I would be looked upon. People may laugh, they may ask, am I into a fancy dress competition? Now, leave the costume aside or leave the dress code aside. If I come with a mindset of a regional, aspect, if I come with a mindset of my values and traditions, and if I have a dialect or if I have an accent that matches with my regional roots, how will I be accepted in that space? We are all diverse beings. We come from different ethnicities. We come from different mindsets. We come from different cultures, and we work together at a workplace. The challenge that companies are facing today is around this subject. We have with us Mr. Manoj Chandran, who has been working in this domain since the last more than 10 years, especially in the field of mental health that is closely connected towards diversity at workplace. Last 5 to 6 years, Mr. Manoj Chandran has been closely connected with organizations who have initiated certain efforts towards diversity and closely towards mental health of the employees. Let's hear from him and let's understand how vast this topic is and what steps and actions have been taken towards the direction. Welcome, Mr. Manoj.
Thank you, Jivak.
Organizations today have recognized diversity and inclusion as an important step to be taken. What does it mean to be focusing on diversity at workplace?
To start with, to set a context to this whole conversation, I think it's important for us to understand that age-old saying that man is a social animal, and in order for us to thrive in a social environment, it is important that we lead a socially healthy life. A life where we feel belonged, accepted, and safe, irrespective of our identities, whoever we are, in whatever way. Like you mentioned, that you could be entering a hall full of people wearing a different attire. How do you feel belonged and accepted and feel safe in that environment will determine about how socially healthy your life would be, actually. At workplace, similarly, Jivak, it is important that every employee receives the support and opportunities for them to thrive and perform to the best of their abilities. They feel recognized regardless of, again, who they are. And this is possible when each one of us acknowledge diversity amidst us, accept that, yes, there is no one or two ways to look at the whole thing. We all are unique, and we will accept whoever our co-workers are, whatever identities, whatever nuances they bring in through their identities. And that is the essence of diversity being practiced at workplaces.
There is too much of to and fro that is happening with regards to, settling in one company. Attrition is high. In all this, the profit of the company takes center stage. The revenue has to increase. Why should diversity matter to an organization?
And through my work in mental health education, I have come to realize, particularly in this, and I've been able to see that across many other spaces of diversities, that many a time we carry a binary perspective to several identities. We feel that there are two kinds of people, my kind and their kind. And these kind of binary views are formed for a variety of reasons again. And when few of us don't fall into the two categories that we believe that exist, that will result into exclusion socially, culturally, financially, in many other ways. And this exclusion puts tremendous pressure and emotional stress on those who are vulnerable. The impact of this exclusion is felt starkly at workplaces, particularly. And clearly, many studies have proven that those who are vulnerable population, who are at the receiving end of the negative aspects or this whole binary perspective to identities people carry, they are multiple times at risk of getting mental health issues. Just one element I'm picking up, multiple times more at risk than anyone else to be getting experiencing mental health issues. So look at it. The moment we are talking about their becoming vulnerable in a health perspective, clearly we see a angle of productivity element here. They're not being able to perform to the best of their abilities, which therefore tells us that it makes perfect business sense for organizations to focus on diversity and make sure that the workplaces are inclusive enough and have all the right ingredients for every single identity to thrive and feel safe at their workplaces. When all of us at workplace do not have the capability to acknowledge diversity and presence of diversity of all kinds at our workplace, at our social environment, we perpetuate unsafe work environments, which in turn can impact employee performances. So clearly, leaders can clearly acknowledge and clearly see that it is important from a business perspective that we begin to make sure that we create a work environment which is inclusive, which makes it safe for every kind of identity of people to be able to work in that environment.
You've touched upon this word called as vulnerability, and so vulnerability is one aspect which you can't shed away. You can't just, if I'm today sitting in a room, I am my complete self. I am with my strengths as well as my weaknesses and my vulnerabilities. How does this entire aspect of how do you balance this vulnerability aspect at workplace, including your strengths? Because for productivity you need strength, and what are the source of these challenges and how to overcome them?
The vulnerability that comes in because of their identity, they may probably be still able to handle that. But the vulnerability that is given to them because of the social construct around their identity becomes extremely difficult and challenging for them to transcend. It's extremely important that we feel accepted every day in the social spaces that we are a part of. And if we don't, then it's going to create a lot of stress in ourselves. Imagine if we were to be walking into a workplace where we know that physically the building is not safe. How will we feel? How will we feel? We will always feel vulnerable, isn't it? The fact that there'll be a stress always. What if the lift doesn't work if I'm inside the lift? Because I've been told that the lift has had a problem last week or something. Imagine if that's the kind of unsafe feeling that we carry about the physical infrastructure, which we don't, because we know that the building is being well maintained, the lift is being maintained, and I don't have to feel any kind of fear in entering the building or entering the lift, and I feel safe. That feeling of safety is an extremely important element for people to not feel vulnerable, actually. And how do we therefore make sure that we create an environment where they feel psychologically safe also, not just physically safe? And that element is also about making sure that we accept their identities, element of vulnerability that we collectively must work towards. And when we are able to empower them through that safe environment, a supportive environment, I can tell you most of the challenges that come out of their identities they can absolutely overcome.
We stay in a diverse country. We come from, we have, even if companies are trying, probably the kind of challenges that are there at the ground level, there are so many. How do you instill this entire value, or how do you internalize diversity?
I have found that the sources of our exclusionary attitude are basically this whole belief system that we have around any of these identities. And many a time, these belief systems are passed on to us, and we have never questioned that. And they form preconceived notions in our mind. Many a time, most of them are surrounded by myths and all. And it's time when we form a certain viewpoints, we form a certain attitude towards any kind of identity, any kind of people. We must begin to question that. And particularly if those views are very, they're going to hamper the life, a quality of life of someone else. We form a binary view of the types of identities. And there is a system of, there's a whole root of fear that we immediately begin to build, because there is a sort of feeling of foreignness to it. Okay, I think that whole thing about they versus we, and the moment I begin to see they, there is this whole thing about I don't know them, I don't have a right perspective, or this is the worldview of their identity, and therefore I need to have a sense of fear about them. It's important that that whole element is touched upon and changed. Organizations need to ensure that employees of all kinds of diverse identities must feel safe and included in the ecosystem. That's the first thing that they will do. They'll say that it is important that I am going to create an environment where all kinds of people are working. They're working because they're bringing certain skills which are valuable to the growth of the organization. And the moment I have such a diverse kind of people population, I'm going to celebrate that, and I'm going to make each of those cohorts feel safe and included in the system. The next thing is to identify the various biases among the employees that exist about any of these identities, which potentially can create toxic work environment for them. Identify any kind of ideas and biases people carry, and try and work towards eliminating such biases among employees and other workforces. How do you do that? Of course, education is the first thing. We must educate employees. We must help them unlearn the kind of perception and notions and beliefs that they carry about certain identities, about certain kind of people. Educating them wherever necessary to help them embrace and accommodate diversity of all kinds. They must be able to do that, and that can happen when they begin to self-reflect on their own perceptions that they carry about any of these identities. Skill them. After education, it's important that you skill them to contribute, because when we're looking at this whole thing about a new paradigm of perception of employees, we are essentially saying that it's an ecosystem, it's a social space we are building that requires every employee to contribute towards making sure that the place is felt safe for by every single kind of identities in the organization. And skilling them is the right way to help them contribute towards bringing a mindset shift and making people feel safe in the work environment. And thirdly, empower them with the right resources. Many a time it is required that we will also need to give resources to these people, empower them in many other ways, sometimes even policy related aspects, so that these employees are able to contribute. Many a time we have good intentions and we would have made good strategy there, good plan there, and many of them also get implemented by way of a transactional aspect of it. But it's very important that organizations look at it from an ecosystem development, from a cultural perspective and all, because then employees take it forward. The whole system takes it forward, because it is in the culture of the organization that everyone feels safe, everyone feels included, whatever kind of identity they bring in. And here, in this particular space, leaders play perhaps the most important pivotal role in bringing that transformation in the organization. We would want more and more leaders to practice a whole new way of looking at diversity at workplace.
I'm so glad beautifully you use the word celebration. We need to celebrate each other at workplace. You might have learned so many things, so many experiences you might have gained, in this work throughout with companies. Can you share a few examples or incidents wherein, there was a breakthrough which will help us get some motivation?
My learning of mental health care at workplace has two broad kind of dimensions to it. When it comes to mental health care, every single person is a stakeholder. The moment you have a view of mental health, the moment you have certain attitude towards those co-workers who may demonstrate some element of emotional distress, you become a stakeholder. So when I started working in the space of mental health care education about 10 years ago, even my idea of mental health was largely about mental illness or mental wellness. But when I started speaking to the different diverse group of people and stakeholders and organizations, um, I realized that there's much more to mental health than just mental illness and well-being. More particularly at workplaces, we must ensure that employees have the right knowledge and attitudes to acknowledge psychodiversity. When we speak about diversity from a mental health perspective, we must acknowledge the existence of psychodiversity. There are different kinds of people and different kind of psychological identities people may bring in at workplaces. How do we accept them? How do we make them feel belonged and give them the space for them to thrive at their workplace? Someone with a mental health condition should receive all possible support, empathy, and opportunities so that they thrive at their workplaces. The earliest works that happened was to be able to create a supportive environment for those who bring in physical challenges. And one of the things we did for them was to build ramp at physical locations, make sure that they are able to access their desk, access any corner of the workplaces without any problem, which is such a great work and great, superb contribution that we could make. We will have to think about mental health care, about what is that ramp equivalent for those who will bring in psychodiversity at workplace. What is that they require at workplace so that they feel that they are supported and they have that the extra resources or different kinds of resources they require so that they feel included in the ecosystem. Secondly, it is very important for us to know that if there is a population among our employee base who experience stigma and exclusion due to their identities. Now, whatever be the identity, if they are feeling stigmatic, marginalized, and excluded, then know that, like I pointed out earlier, know that they are several times at risk, more at risk than any other common people, a common employee, in getting a mental health condition, in experiencing mental health issues and all. Now look at it. Suddenly, they may not be having any mental health issue at all. A person who has never experienced a mental health issue, but has a certain identity which is not accepted in that workplace. That person, because of that exclusionary attitude at workplace, has the propensity to get into a mental health issue or experience mental health issue multiple times more likely than anyone else. So we are therefore, then if the organization is not making sure that the place is inclusive enough, this person of a certain identity may feel extremely difficult to perform at that workplace. And there is a greater chance of triggering mental health issue at such toxic work environment. So we have to look at particularly from a mental health perspective in diversity, to create safe spaces for those who may be having a history of mental health issues, but also look at mental health not to be a trigger for any other identities, actually. That's an element we must keep in mind.
Let's imagine a beautiful place of work, and this person enters, and the person has a bias towards, okay, now people previously have done this to me, they may have the similar kind of effect, and there is where the problem starts. Now here the issue is more of mental health and not of diversity, but then it turns to a situation of diversity. What should be done in such a case?
Perfect example. So, Jivak, one thing is that first question we will ask is, why is that the employer has employed this person? The person has been employed because the person brings in certain skills which is valuable to the growth of the organization. The organization feels that they need that skill, and the person should be able to apply those skills in the space, in the kind of ecosystem, in the team that he or she is a part of. The moment that answer is there for the organization, then the organization has to do everything possible for that person to be able to apply the skill and contribute in the most appropriate manner in the role that they are playing, actually, isn't it? That's what organization has to do. It absolutely doesn't matter. I mean, it should not matter To them, if the person brings in certain psychodiversity or certain history of mental health issue, if the person is able to perform and contribute in the on the expected lines.
Well simplified, because I think focusing on the skills and the strengths is much more important, and rather than on the other aspects which may not contribute towards the work. Interesting. Another a very spontaneous question that is coming to my mind is, as CEOs, as MDs, as founders and co-founders today, the famous labels, that titles we have, they when they might have set a goal to form a company, it was purely for profits, purely for revenue generation. And as they progressed into, when the numbers of employees increased from 20 to say 200 to 2000, then they realized, okay, there are so many different aspects that are coming up. Is there resistance in their thoughts?
The silver lining is that over the last few years, particularly in the space of mental health and across all other spaces of diversity, I've seen increasingly leaders at corporate level, at organizations, and even organizations in general have begun to see the need for them to focus on diversity, the need for them to bring in people of all kinds of diverse identities has been felt, therefore they have begun to implement diversity as a program within the organization. I'm very happy and optimistic about the fact that we will see an increasing adoption of, and we are already seeing an increasing adoption of diversity as a core element of the culture that organizations want to build.
Coming to technology, technology is known to inherit human bias, with artificial intelligence spreading into almost all functions. Carrying the bias along, where are we headed with regards to?
So again, Jivak, biases are part of our life. Technology can both be beneficial and challenging, and they can sometimes perpetuate biases and all. And but they are also sometimes great leverage point to remove those biases. We cannot deny that employees must be appropriately educated, skilled, and resources. Now, that's the given. If we have to really build a workplace where we accept and celebrate diversity, then every employee must be educated, skilled, and resourced, so that they are able to contribute in creating the work environment which is inclusive enough for all kinds of diverse co-workers. I'm very optimistic. Such technologies could possibly be used to detect toxic environments, for instance. If there are, because many a time such biases can be so deep in the system that will be very difficult to detect, and the manifestation of those biases and the result of those biases may probably be felt only within a small cohort of people in a large organization. And how can technology be used to detect such toxic work environments or biases that exist within small population in the organization is something that leaders will begin to think about. How can technology be used to look at stigmatic behavior, change languages, for instance, identify certain kinds of words which are, because many a time without us realizing it, unconsciously we become biased to certain identities and all. How can technology help us become conscious of such biases through the language that we use, the mannerism and behavior and all? So there are various optimistic. I'm very optimistic about the use of technology in a very positive, constructive way also.
So yes, technology is going to help us, save from the bias, let's say. Yeah. Can I add one more very crucial, very a situational question? Because you're from the field of mental health, I'm taking this opportunity to ask you, because it's such a delicate affair. It is such a very crucial point that the person may just break down. The person may just give up. And we have seen suicidal tendencies around people. Mental health, even though I'm saying it so easily, it is not so easy. It's deep rooted somewhere. People may start doubting themselves on their abilities, even though they may be highest postgraduates. Why am I elaborating on this question is because this I want to include everyone who has faced this. What would you say that even though companies have laid down measures, even though there are tools available, even though people are being there's an awareness of sorts, still there is bully. What is to be done then?
Sure, Jivak. So, of course, we can't deny that despite our best efforts in organizations, there would be scenarios, there would be situations that people will feel vulnerable because of the system, sometimes because of certain individuals, certain kind of views and biases people carry. There are two aspects to it. One is that if, particularly from a mental health perspective, I would tell you that if there is a situation which is putting tremendous pressure on your emotional health, and health is the one of the most important element we should focus in our life. It's important that we lead a healthy life, but also emotionally healthy life. So if there is a situation, there are people, there are scenarios at workplaces, for that matter, any other place, which is potentially creating or triggering mental health issues within me. It's important that I begin to first acknowledge and that there is a presence of that trigger that is possibly going to create or is already creating emotional stress on me or even mental health issues within me. Then acknowledging it and then making sure that I'm finding a redressal to it, which means I'm going to a mental health professional or I'm talking to a dear one about it, is a very first important step that I take. Most often we don't do that. We get into a denial mode about it. We say, okay, it's okay. I think I'll handle it. Everyone goes through it. What big deal? Everybody's being bullied at workplace. I need my job. I can't go to a mental health professional and such things. That should not be the way we handle it. We speak about it to whoever we can, whoever gives us that safe space, and then eventually make sure that we reach out to a mental health professional to find out how do I come out of that emotional distress situation that I'm part of. As for now, that is something that I'm handling about my health thing actually. But the fact remains that I'm still working in that environment, which you mentioned is toxic and not very supportive and all. Now, when you talk to mental health professionals also, they will tell us that there are two sides to the whole thing. There are areas which you have control on. There are areas that you don't have control on. Focus on areas that you have control on. Continue to focus on areas that you have control on. Many a time, we are trying to keep finding that, okay, that is the problem, and you have no control on that. And most of our time will be spent on talking about and lamenting about those areas which we have no control on. And then we feel super distressed here. Oh my God, why is the boss like that? Why is the work environment like that? And that's it. And in that process, we are not able to even tweak that area which we have control on. And that's a small change that we can begin to bring in. There is no cookie cutter answer to your question, saying that everywhere just apply this and it gets solved actually. But that's a small beginning that one can make in addressing the small challenges. Many times it may be required that we finally take a big decision to say that, no, it's not right for us to continue like this.
In conclusion, diversity, inclusion, and mental health is a collective effort. It is from the CEO, founder, to all the employees, and to it includes people like you, Mr. Manoj, who have been taking drastic steps, because it's difficult to be a mediator. It's difficult to facilitate this kind of a program. It's not easy, with the conversation that we had today, it shows that it is so difficult, yet it is very simple. Just small shifts here and there in the vocabulary, in the mindset, in the approach, how you look at each one of us. We all are together, and as you rightly said, we need to celebrate each other. We need to celebrate the strengths that we have, because you never know, we all can contribute and get something more better and more bigger, and everybody can be successful at a given point in time. Somebody's failing, we can pick that person up. Let's work together. Mr. Manoj, thank you so much for your time and your inputs. We are with you wherever you think we can contribute in the place of diversity, in the place of mental health. We Storytellers is always going to support you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jivak.